one time, then I fell again. I fell a third time, can't get away from the sin. I keep falling, then I come back to you, crawling, asking forgive me now I'm ballin', knowing that I let you down, appalling. I don't wanna jeopardize my calling. When I hear your voice no more I'm halting. I just wanna live in the world you're revolving. I am so imperfect I'm getting involved in these flesh-tied friends, the blind consulting, pulling me away from the world and revolting. Asking for forgiveness is probably insulting, but you keep taking me back and you're vaulting. Give me chances. You keep giving me chances. You give me chances. You just keep giving me chances. King. Royalty, stand up, brand up, fam up, hand out, no way, hands up, know what, name that, it's mine, claim that, it's time, message, we shine, above all, the decline, the darkness cannot last, the shadow of my past, before I gain knowledge of heritage, I have the bloodline that I share, most powerful out here, the mover of mountains is who I am touting, the richest among us is who I'm the son of, from sundown to sun up, that's how I the come up, position is just mine, the favor in due time, can't have it, man you lying, the powerless you trying, enemy beneath me, there's nothing to teach me, the people receive me, cause my God complete me, and my God does keep me, and my God they free me, and my God redeem me, and my God relieve me, I'm king in the million, crown me, I am winning my position, God's giving, God's in it, God's surely king. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Elevation Podcast. My name is Shawn Riff-Raff, and I am here, every Tuesday we get together and we have conversations with different people from different places in the world, different walks of life, and we find out all of the wonderful things that we have in common just as humans and in humanity that we have in common. And I think it's one of the greatest things that we could ever do, just learn about each other from our commonalities instead of always talking about what is different amongst, between us and what divides us. Today we have a special guest with us. We have someone who has a story to tell us about what she has gone through and her walk in life. And I think that you guys will really enjoy it. It's a really interesting story. Her name is Amy Bovaird. How you doing? I know I said your name wrong again. I'm sorry, Bovaird. But Bovaird, say it again. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, Bovaird. Yeah, you got
Bovaird. No, I said it right.
Yep.
Amy, how are you doing, Amy?
Oh, I'm doing great. Yeah. So happy to be here.
It's been super cool to have a short conversation with you, just about you've written a lot of books and you've done a lot of things, and you're an author and you're a speaker, but I want to know about you. I think that's my biggest thing is create context for us. Tell us about you, where you're from, what brought you to being who you are today.
Okay. So I'm from Northwest Pennsylvania. I'm the third of four children. We grew up in a very small town, 10,000, if that. Well, actually, more like 3,000, and when I was growing up, and I don't even know if it's 10,000 now. Anyway, it's pretty small. So I was just so quiet, and I had one passion, and that was language, people, just learning about other countries. I love that. And I remember coloring in coloring books with this international women dolls and all kinds of quiet things. And I was probably the one, if you ask my classmates that would least go anywhere. I was such a homebody. But in my third year of college, I took a class in linguistics, and I just fell in love with language. All over again, with dialect, with how people spoke, with from different regions, and I decided to teach English as a second language. And
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was so great. And that enabled me to travel overseas and teach.
Mm.
And I didn't. I was a terrible. I felt like I was a terrible teacher. Like it was just my method. It was just my transportation to get into other countries. And somewhere, like in the beginning, I mean, I couldn't find a job. I was still back at home, and I worked with Immigration and Refugee Services. I made up a job with that refugee company, and I just marketed myself. And and then maybe a year or so later, I met some people, and I was offered a job in South America, Colombia, South America. That was in 1984 when when they were like advertising, like the news highlighting that for every um, person that American that went abroad, they were killing for every. No, I know what it was now. It was because of the drug lords,
Right.
and so for everyone arrested, two Americans would be killed. And that was when I was supposed to go overseas. So my mother
Mm.
was so worried.
Mm.
And I said, "It's going to be okay, Mom. It's going to be okay." So I went to a small private school and I taught for 2 years. It was
Mm.
wonderful,
Wow.
a great job.
Wow.
And and then I was still wanting to teach, so I taught. I found a job in Costa Rica at teaching
Wow.
third grade.
Wow.
And yeah, so that summer I was able to travel around between semesters, and I had gone to Ecuador, to the jungle. One of the places I was traveling by myself, one of the places I went to was the jungle, the
Wow.
interior jungle on the Amazon. So I was like, wow, this is so cool. I can learn how to set traps. I can live in the wilderness, do this and do that. But I couldn't see. I started
Mm.
having this problem because it was really dark, and people started, like we put together a group of 3 or 4 people. They started laughing at me because they said, "No, you stay here. We'll go." Because I don't know why I wasn't seeing well, but I was, tripping people, and I don't know. I, we went to see at night. They went to see some caiman, some little like alligator, crocodile kind of things,
Mm.
and they told me, "You stay here. You stay at the camp." I was like, "What? I don't get to see that." And so when I went back to the States, um, I don't know, about a week or so later, I thought, I am going to go to the eye doctor and see what's going on here. And I had just been offered a job in Indonesia.
Mm.
So I was like all geared to go. It was the other side of the world. And I was making mental lists of what I needed to do. One of them was to get stronger glasses.
Mhm.
So I went. We had an ophthalmologist right in my own hometown, my small hometown. I said, I feel like I'm night blind. Like I just keep tripping and I just can't see anything. And so this sort of tipped him off that something more was going on.
Mm.
And he recommended to send me to a retinal specialist. And
Mm.
again, my mind was thinking Indonesia, Indonesia, Indonesia. So I didn't really put that much stock into it. I just wanted to hurry up and get it done so I can go. Get ready, go. And after 2 days, the doctor, the specialist, and his assistant, they set me down and they said, I don't know how to tell you this, but you have a condition that is very serious and that you are losing your sight. And I remember the first thing I said is, do you have the right file?
Mm.
I couldn't imagine that this would be
Wow.
going on with me.
Wow.
And they told me that I should change my career field because I was losing my sight. I was legally blind at that point, they said.
Mm.
And I said, I have a job. I'm supposed to teach in Indonesia. And I remember just being in shock at that point and going going. My mom drove me in there it was about a half an hour away. And I wouldn't tell her what the doctor said
Mm.
until later. And her response was just so incredible. My mom had a lazy eye, so she couldn't see well out of one eye. But I told her that I had a condition called retinitis pigmentosa, where the pigment was going to cover my eyes, and I was not going to be able to see. She said, "Amy, if I could give you my vision, I would. I've lived my life, and you're just beginning yours.
Oh.
So I was just so touched. I remember just bursting into tears, and just it would just melted all of the grief that I had at that moment.
Yeah.
And it was just so beautiful.
Wow. Tell me about your journey when you started to actually lose your sight. Tell me about the journey, or
Yeah.
having once, I remember my granddad uh, lost his sight to, I think it was cataracts or something like that, and he
Hmm.
lost his sight. Um, and he it was a process that, I mean, we knew, that we knew he had cataracts,
Right.
but it was a process. It wasn't like one day he just couldn't see. It was a process
Yeah.
of how he lost his sight. Tell me about your process. um
Yeah. Well, likewise, it was slow, it was gradual. It's usually different for everyone,
mm-hmm,
but for me, it was gradual. I didn't
mm-hmm,
know in the 80s they didn't know what it was going to be like. So
mm-hmm,
in the beginning, I did end up going to Indonesia, and I thought every day I thought, is today the day? Is today the day I lose it?
mm-hmm,
And so that first year I was really kind of kind of timid about things. I didn't tell people, but I was afraid that they would maybe send me back to the States or something. So
right.
I kept silent. And uh, I I remember there was a cave that I went in with in another island from where I lived, and I went with a bunch of young people. We were all, well, not that young. We we're probably in our late 20s, and one guy said, "Gosh, you walk like an old granny." And I remember just feeling like so devastated at that. And I didn't say why. I didn't, I just said, well, sometimes we're just like that. Something, some quip or something. But that those kinds of things would happen to me. And I guess that's why I just clammed up about it. I didn't tell people. And I continued to teach, to travel, to teach in different countries. uh, After that, I worked for the government, and they sent me on mobile training teams to teach English. And we went to Egypt, we went to Taiwan, and you always had to pass an eye test. But I was lucky that I think one time I was passed, and I didn't really pass, but they let me go. And I, I just kept adapting. And
Right.
I met this Egyptian. I fell in love with this Egyptian guy in the military, and we secretly got married. And his military was, there was a regulation you couldn't marry foreigners, couldn't even uh, associate with foreigners. And
Right.
yeah, and so I ended up leaving my job in San Antonio, and I had told him about my eye condition, and his response was so beautiful too. He said, Amy, you see with your heart, and
Mm.
you don't have to see with your eyes.
Wow.
And it was really, really beautiful.
That
And
is beautiful.
and I had dated a Japanese guy, and he was like, "Don't tell anyone, don't tell anyone." So the
Right.
contrast was very wide, and so
Wow.
we got married, and we were living in in the Middle East, in the United Arab Emirates, not
Mm-hmm.
Egypt, not the United States. And he got out of the military. He's court-martialed, and he got out. He didn't have to go to. It was a long story, but he got out. We started our life together. Still, again, now by this time my vision, I've had cataracts, also early cataracts. That's a symptom of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had one removed. And we got pregnant right away, like within a year,
Mm.
and uh, we found out it was twins. So I didn't have any history of twins in my family, and neither did he. So we said, "Oh, this is because God let us be together," And we were starting our life, and we had all this symbolism, and we married in Egypt, and this was double happiness. So in
Yeah.
Taiwan, so with time. The emblems from Taiwan, because I left from Taiwan to Egypt, and
Right.
so we thought double happiness. This is what we have, twins, and it was over the moon. Finally I told everybody in both college. There was a I taught at a college, women's college, and he taught at a men's college. So I told both. I sent an email to everybody after 12 weeks. And I said, I am pregnant. I have twins. I have twins. And probably in my fifth week, we learned that we had lost one twin.
Oh.
And so this is just a little side story, but and then I had to be hospitalized. I had something called preeclampsia, and so I was in the hospital 4 weeks, and in Dubai, in
Mm.
that government hospital,
Yeah.
and God used that time. He used me to touch other people and to encourage other women who were there. And anyway, I, we ended up again losing our second baby,
Mm.
and she was so small. She was 350 grams.
Mm.
So yeah. So the point was, after that, my relationship went downhill. We tried again, and all this stuff happened. And that's when I started losing my vision more. I think
Mm.
stress causes
Yeah.
causes it to speed up.
Right.
I had more cataracts, were just terrible. I called them the light monsters because when I was riding down the street, the street lights would seem like to get really big and then small. Maybe your grandfather could have said something like that.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yep. He said he can see, like, later on in his life, he said that, he could see, light coming in, but then he couldn't determine what it actually was. He could
mhm.
just see light coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like just light, and
Right.
it changes shape, or
Mm-hmm.
that's what it seemed like for me anyway.
Right.
And it's like, as I progressed, it was hide and seek vision. Like
Mm.
you would walk into something you wouldn't see that was there, and you trip over. You even walk into walls. So I came home in 2006. My father was diagnosed with cancer, and I he passed away. I stayed home to help my mom because she was by herself at that point. Well, she seemed to have aged quite a bit after his death, and she really needed somebody to be here and
Sure.
help her. So
Sure.
I relocated, and after I think I might have forgotten my husband and I broke up. I don't know, but anyway, so I was back into single status, and
Right.
that is when I noticed that my vision was like walking off a cliff. I mean, I it was so many problems,
Wow.
and when I was teaching in a small, God gave me a job right in my hometown, my small hometown, and I was tripping over their books. I couldn't hear them very well. Another thing I have is hearing loss, progressive hearing loss,
Mm.
and so I was teaching. I was at that time teaching Spanish, and I was trying to listen to my students, trying not to trip over them, trying to keep it a secret. All of these things at once, and I had taken a couple years off, thinking I was going to write, but that wasn't really giving me any money to live on, and
Right.
it was just like God brought everything to a head. That was a transition year,
Yeah.
and
Mm. What year was that? You said '06.
sorry,
What year was that? You said '06.
yeah, that was 2000. No, it was more like 2008.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was teaching at a college class, Asian Studies. I
Mm.
couldn't really hear my students' answers, and it's just awful, 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 awful. And I felt like I was on the periphery of everything,
Right.
like I couldn't really hear at teachers' meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just awful. In the middle of that year, I was talking to like I call her a psych counselor, but she's just a counselor, and
Sure.
she worked with psych. And uh, she told me, I have someone I want you to meet. He's a mobility instructor, orientation and mobility instructor,
Mm.
and you really need to talk to him. I think he can help you. And I said, oh, I don't think so. I think I knew she was talking about a white cane, and I thought, no, I'm not blind. I'm just clumsy. And
Right.
that's what I had told myself all those years. And he called me actually, and he wanted to meet up. And I finally gave in and said, okay. So he came, and he knocked at the door. My mom said there's someone at the door, and he had a white cane. And I said, oh my gosh, he's blind. Why? Why didn't he tell me he was blind? I cleaned up my apartment. I did all this stuff. And I'm like, I better get the rugs out of the way. And I was so nervous. I kept telling him, there's a step up, another step, go straight. I mean, I was so nervous. I didn't know how to respond to him. And he's like, it's okay, Amy. It's okay. Just, I'll find my way. He's trying to put me at ease. I'm like, he didn't tell me he was blind. How can I handle this? And then when he came into I have a kind of a studio flat
Hmm.
over the house. It's my own place. It used to be a lumber yard, a lumber loft, and so I have the sofa. That's the biggest thing in the office. And I said, "Oh, have a seat." And what do I know? He sat on my dog. Poor guy. He said, "I think there's something here." I said, "Yeah, that's my dog." Not a guide dog, just like a dog. And so I moved the dog and I put him out, out of the way. And it just kind of broke the ice for us. And then
Hmm.
he's talking to me, and he told me he's completely blind. And I think he had the same thing I did, same condition, RP, but he had lost his sight a long time ago. And he said, "Why don't you just tell people you're blind?" I'm like, "I'm not blind." And I remember thinking, why does everyone who's blind think that I have to be blind too? And I was so resistant. It took a couple months. He was very pragmatic. He was very persistent.
Hmm.
And he wanted me to practice using a cane in the house. And I was like, everyone's going to see. Who's like everyone? My mom? And he wanted me to go in the neighborhood. And I was not very nice because I went and he told me to close my eyes and I peeked all the time. So he kept saying, "You're really fast, you're really good." And I mean, I wasn't. Then I started feeling like that's not very honest, Amy. And it was maybe a month or so later, we actually put sleep shades on me, like the things that you wear when you fly on the plane when you want
Sure.
to sleep. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was the beginning of change that year. And because I felt like he was the sighted one and I was the blind one. And we
Mm.
were taking a walk down my street, and he's like, uh, 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 I could hear I could hear things that I didn't know where I was. Was I in the street? Was I going to get hit? And he's like, "It's okay. Keep going straight. You're okay. You're okay." And we crossed a bridge into the next city, although, it's like only a mile. And then we turned around and we came back. And I had so many fears. And yet I said, "Can I take off my sleep shades?" "Not yet, not yet." And then I said, "Can I take them off again?" At 5 minutes later, he said, "Yeah, you can take them off." We were right in front of my house. Can you
Mm.
believe that? It was like I told him. I said, "You were in my place, and I was in yours." And he said, "No, Amy. There's only one world. We just see it with different perspectives."
Hmm.
And this is what I think you're talking about when you're looking
Hmm.
for commonalities with
Yes,
people.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it really hits home because we are all we are all the same.
We
We
are
have
all.
so many similarities.
Hmm.
We just have to look at it and find them,
Right.
and we can come at it in a different way, in different
Yeah.
ways.
I think one of the wonderful things that makes us as humans different than every other species is our need for interconnection,
Yeah,
and our need for our survival is really based on each other. And that's, I think, one of the most important things is that your survival is based on being connected to the different people around you. You've told so many stories about just now you were telling a story about how you know you didn't really know where to go, and your connection with someone who connected you to someone else who allowed you to see the world different. It really, and that is connected to your survival as a person.
yeah.
And I think that's one of the wonderful things. Tell me about your connection to faith. You've mentioned God a couple of times.
Yeah.
Tell me about how all of this is connected to your relationship with God.
You know, I think that God uses. challenges to strengthen us.
Mm.
Each challenge is harder, and but he always provide for me. He always provides someone to help me.
Mhm.
He puts someone in my path to guide me. It
Mhm.
seems like in everywhere I go.
Mhm.
Um, and when I first, what made me decide to go to Indonesia was
Mhm.
I was told everybody I knew that I had this problem. They're like, "Oh, so sorry," but like, what are they going to say? You know.
Right.
And so when I exhausted those possibilities, I started praying and I started reading the Bible. And there was
Mm.
this one scripture in Genesis where um, God tells Abraham. At that time, it was Abram. He said,
Mhm.
"Abram, go to a land that I will show you, and I will make you a blessing to many people, to lands, many people." And I
Mhm.
said, if God can do this with Abram, then
Mhm.
he can take care of me in
Mhm.
Indonesia.
Mm.
So God always, like, in the end, God is the one that points me in the right direction.
Mhm.
He provides friendships, that interconnection that you mentioned.
Mhm.
And like when I was in the hospital in Dubai, and I was by myself because my husband was back where we lived in another emirate, in the northern emirate, and he couldn't come. I had one Christian friend, and she was from North Carolina, and another teacher. She came to me, and she filled in that gap, and she's the one that took me to the hospital in the first place.
Mhm.
Like, and and made sure I got help because we didn't. We, she was taking her son there, but we didn't know how sick I was. If I hadn't gone there, in 2 days later, I would have been dead. The doctor had said I wouldn't have made it, and it took 2 days before I was like what do you call it? Stabilized.
Mhm.
You know, they they took me out of the American hospital and put me in the government hospital because they had a
Mhm.
kidney dialysis machine
Mm.
and my body was shutting down. So like God always puts people in my pathway to encourage me to I don't know. There's a woman in Australia that she has RP, and
Mhm.
completely other part of the world. We became friends through our writing. And
Mm.
she's amazing, and she's the one that got me involved in Vision Aware, which has strengthened my ability to talk about sight loss and to influence people to use a white cane because
Mhm.
it differentiates us. People look at us differently. And I through my book, Mobility Matters, Stepping Out in Faith, I I was able I'm now able to promote that book and
Mm.
encourage other people who are at
Mm.
that crossroads.
Mm. Tell me about since you brought it up. Tell me about like your writing. Tell me about some of your books, and like which, um, what was your first book, and what inspired it? Was it your situation? Was it your or was it just what inspires your first writing?
Yeah, that was Mobility Matters, Stepping Out in Faith. I kept trying to write about the countries I had traveled at, but it
Sure.
wouldn't come together. It was like, nope, nope, that's not it. God kept guiding me to something else. And I had a writing coach, and she said, write about what you know, Amy. And I said, well, I just had this amazing experience. And so that's what came out of it. And I thought it was just going to be this little book, but it turned out to be like 23 chapters or something like that. And it was really about the journey of that year. So it pushed its way like a baby. I mean,
Right.
it pushed its way out. And so I haven't yet written about my travels, like only about my travels. It's always been in the context of sight loss. But
Mm-hmm.
I do have when I started getting confident about my sight loss, about using my white cane, I could start to see a lot more humor in it in
Mm-hmm.
my walk. And so the second book, Cane Confessions, The Lighter Side to Mobility, is
Mm-hmm.
about my mishaps. And it's
Right.
about not only that, but my strengths that
Right.
emerged.
Right.
And but it's a lot of humor. And
Yeah.
so those are shorter stories, like they're 27 short stories, some of them 6 different countries, and then the rest in the States. And how I got through. Like one time, I was invited to someone's house and I couldn't find where the chair was. Instead of admitting I couldn't find it, I just said I wanted. I decided. I love to sit on the floor. So I made this whole complicated story about how wonderful her carpet was. And this woman had never been around someone with sight loss, so she was afraid of the basement door. So she kept, every time I walked to the bedroom, she'd say, "Make sure that basement door is closed." And I was worried about where's the furniture. So we weren't really connecting. We were
Right.
just keeping our fears,
Right.
perpetuating them, and
Right.
um, and by the end, I realized what was happening, and I got a lesson from it,
Wow.
about being honest and sharing what we need with
Mm.
each other. Yeah.
To speak of fear, how much fear did you feel in the process of sight loss?
Oh, so much. So much. I mean, it's like it. Each day is a new day, and you
Hmm.
might feel confident, and then something, and then you hit your head, and you have a big bump that looks like a camel or something on the top of your head. So
Hmm.
then you start to fear. It goes away, it comes back, goes away, it comes back, and you know, I, I I was telling you earlier about how I was afraid to have my white cane
Hmm.
in front of people who knew me before my white cane. Yeah.
Hmm.
So there's all kinds of fears, psychological, physical, um,
Yeah.
emotional, that you go through in that journey.
Mm. Wow. Um, and so you mentioned before you the sight loss became a thing. You had already wanted to become a writer. Was
Yes.
that like I mean, being as your thing is language, was writing just a dream of yours?
Yeah, I guess it was because I couldn't, I would always say, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to talk about this country. I'm going to talk about all of my adventures." I had lots of adventures.
Sure.
And um, people would say, "Where's the book? Where's the book?" I'm
Yeah.
like, "It's coming. It's coming." I had no idea how to write a book. And so I wrote newsletters about
Right.
my adventures. And so the newsletters became fodder for books later
Mm.
on. So,
Wow.
yeah, that's how I started.
Do you think that sight loss pushed you to your destiny of being an author?
I don't think it pushed me, but it rerouted me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that I always had that desire to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and but it channeled me in that direction of having something that I knew about intimately and that I could use as a tool of encouragement.
Mm.
You know, yeah. So that's what I think it did.
That's awesome. So there's a question I ask everyone. As I get to the time, the all right. As I get to the time here, is always a question I ask everyone. I ask everyone the same question, and it so interests me to get the answer to it. One day I'm going to make a collaboration of this question, like a video of everybody's different answer. Um, so if there was one thing in the whole world that one day God just gave you you know, he allowed you the grace to just change. If there's one thing about the world that you could change, what do you think that would be?
How about the world?
About people, about just about anything in the world that you would change.
Well, I think I want a similar goal to what you want. I want people to connect. I want language not to be a barrier. I want culture to enrich us. I want foods to feed us. I just want us to embrace the differences and the similarities. And
Mm,
so I would change that, the fear of of meeting, of not knowing a different culture,
mm-hmm,
of those man-made boundaries that we put up, and I
mm-hmm,
would just erase them.
mm,
Like without borders. I just want us to. I always dream of bringing everybody in one place to celebrate. With the same thing with my wedding, I was like, I want this person, I want this person. They're all from different walks of life,
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
I just really see the special traditions and qualities of people. I love
Mm-hmm.
people who are humble and who are um, just they just speak from their heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I felt like when I was traveling. I met a lot of people like that who I remember wanting to climb a mountain, and the one guy, he instead of climbing a mountain in Indonesia, he took me to his house and invited me for an older man, real like in his 80s, and
Mm-hmm.
he didn't eat, and I'm like, well, and they're waiting for me to eat.
Mm-hmm.
He was so humble that he just wanted me to go first.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that, and I love being meeting people with the grace of God, and just that's what I just want us to connect and celebrate similarities and different, and in our differences are everything, because we are unique as
Mm-hmm.
a people.
That's awesome. So tell us how to get. So I have your website on the screen. Where can we, other than your website, where does one purchase or contact you, or purchase your
Yeah,
your books or?
yeah, they can get them on Amazon, on
Okay.
iTunes, on audible.com. I tried to make them in as many formats as possible: large print,
Okay.
regular print, ebook. I'm working to get them in Braille now. Uh,
Mm,
we'll have some laughs, we'll have some tears. We'll go together.
mm.
You're not alone.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. I really appreciate you coming. You doing this today. I feel like there is a lot that you had to offer us, and I really thank you for being here. And this is pretty amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, your style is so relaxed. It's easy to talk to you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Um,
you. All
so
right. Well, thank.
yeah.
This has been. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Could I tell you one more thing?
Go
That
ahead,
right
please.
now I'm a blogger too, so I blog about my stories, what
Okay.
happens, and I'm offering right now my ebook, "Hitting a Home Run: Blind and Thriving," if when people sign up for my newsletter.
Okay. Is that on your website?
Yep. Hmm.
All right. You guys heard it. Sign up for our website, amybovaird.com, Bovaird, excuse me.com. And you guys check her out and connect with her, especially you that are going through similar scenarios and know people who are going through the similar scenarios. Like me, my grandfather went through a similar scenario. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Thank you, Amy, so much for sharing with us. This has been the Elevation Podcast. My name is Shawn Riff-Raff. Thank you guys so much. See you later.